Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Unlocked, the podcast that inspires you to create a successful, happy and positive life. Hosted by me, Locke, professional magician and speaker who's on a mission to understand how can we truly live the best version of ourselves. Welcome to this week's episode. It's great to have you here and you are about to hear a fantastic conversation that I had with one of my heroes. I know I say that a lot, but this week's guest really is because many years ago his work inspired me to think about how can we be the best version of ourselves. And he has a great concept called the 4-minute rule, and it's a profound idea that will switch on a few light bulbs or two. And it will certainly help you create greater first impressions in life and hopefully help you to live a better version of yourself. And we had such a great conversation and a few giggles together that we've split this episode into two. But I hope you enjoyed the episode, and as always, don't forget, head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser and leave a preferably 5-star rating. That will help out. And then this podcast can be shared to more listeners. But without further ado, enjoy this episode with the wonderful Steve McDermott. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Unlocked. My next guest, over the last 26 years, he has been a broadcaster, businessman, author, and is recognised as one of Europe's funniest, most insightful motivational speakers and facilitators. He has won the prestigious European Motivational Speaker of the Year award 3 times, and ASDA describes him as half business guru and half stand-up comedian. Welcome to the show, Steve. How are you doing?
Hello, Ricky. I'm good. In these interesting times still that we're in.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, quite interesting. And for everyone listening, we're recording this on the 15th of March, 2021. Yeah. Who would have known 12 months ago, Steve, that we'd be in this position right now?
Nobody is the answer. And as you know, because I know you're a big fan of my book, I talk a lot about my book about vision. And I think the thing that people have all struggled with, yours truly included, is nobody knows. You know, yeah. I'm sick of that word. It's a cliche, isn't it? Unprecedented. Yes, nearly a year into this interesting time, still nobody really knows.
Yeah, not even a magician and a mind reader could have predicted this. That's how tough it was. But look, it is a pleasure to have you here, Steve. I'll explain a little bit more later on. But your class is one of my heroes, which is I'll go into more detail a little bit later on. And I only discovered you about 4 or 5 years ago with 2 lovely ladies called Bev and Kate. So fans of the podcast will know I have a bingo card, Steve, that I often reference the same people in every single episode, and Bev and Kate get a mention. So if anybody's playing bingo right now, you might get a line today. There you go. But it's a pleasure, mate, to have you on here. Thank you for coming on. And tell us who you are. I know we had a really cool intro there, but tell us who you are.
Yeah, you know, this last year I was celebrating 26 years as a motivational speaker, which always tickles me because I'm from Yorkshire, right? And those two things don't always go together, do they? I think when I first started, there weren't that many motivational speakers. If you go on LinkedIn or Facebook, everybody's a bloody motivational speaker now, aren't they, right? But back then, somebody from Yorkshire being a motivational speaker, it's usually somebody rah-rah from America, right? It's a long story how I got there, but short version is I was a creative director of an advertising agency. And again, people go, hang on a minute, you went from being creative director. So if you're not sure, if you've seen the series Mad Men, have you seen that, Ricky?
Yeah.
We were like the documentary version of that, really, in the 1980s, nice. Right? So, creative director, how do you go from that to being a motivational speaker? Well, I got promoted to my level of incompetence. Has that ever happened to you?
All right.
That's why you're really good at one thing. So you're like an English teacher, and now they go, you're head of English. Or in my case, I was a copywriter in an ad agency. Now you're creative director, which meant I was now in charge of 40 mad people. And I thought there's probably more to this leadership thing than just making it up. So I went on my first ever self-development course. And I know you're a big fan of self-development, and a lot of your podcast talks about that, in 1990.
Wow, I was 1 year old.
There you go, 1990, first ever time. And so I was in my 30s, right? First time, and it was the classic Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And I did that. And Carnegie have a brilliant model where they go, if you're any good, you do the course 14 weeks, and they go, do you want to come back and help out? So we won't pay you, but you have to do the course again from back at room, and you have to be a role model. So I got hooked on personal development, and I started taking the ideas back to the agency, and people loved it, right? And then eventually I thought, I love this so much, I'm going to start my own company. So I started my own training company. Then I started doing big events, and eventually an agent came along to my event and said, can I be your agent? And well, how does that work? Well, I just get you gigs and you turn up and talk for 45 minutes. Which I'm quite good at. All my school reports said Steve needs to realise he won't get very far in life if he keeps talking in class, right? So they didn't have career advisors, didn't have like job speaker, right? So I kind of went into speaking and kind of found my purpose really. And And I said I've been doing that for 26 years. So last year I was meant to be doing a one-man show at the Edinburgh Fringe. Are you familiar with Edinburgh Fringe?
Yeah, 26.2, I believe.
26.2 show, because I was also meant to be running the London Marathon last year.
Right.
So 3 of my main goals last year were running the London Marathon. You probably noticed that didn't happen. So instead of running the London Marathon, I ran 105.5 laps of my local running track on my own. That was interesting. And I used a lot of the stuff I discovered from personal development around beliefs and stuff to do that. I was went to be doing a one-man show in Edinburgh throughout August. So instead of doing that, I did the 26.2 show, because in case you don't know, a marathon is
26.2 miles.
Correct,
yes.
Right? And then my book was meant to be coming out last June in all WH Smith's travel outlets, airports and train stations. And my publisher went, probably not a good idea, that, right? They're all closed. Yeah. So it actually came out in January this year, the 3rd edition, which we'll probably dive into, with a brand new, some would say controversial title. So I know you're a big fan. You came across the 2nd edition, which is called...
Yeah, How to Be a Complete and Utter Failure in Life, Work, and Everything, 44.5 Steps to Lasting Underachievement.
Yeah, so the new version has 47.5 steps. I've added 3 new steps and updated all the other ones, but it has a brand new title, right? So we've changed the word failure, how to be a complete utter failure, to how to be a complete utter, and I'm going to say duck up.
Duck up,
but we all know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so my passion really is it's personal development for people with a sense of humor, really.
Yeah.
Because I think the Americans don't quite get, I'm using Americans as an example, don't quite get that Brits don't like too much of that rah-rah and, just say yeah and all that, right?
Yeah.
And yet you and I know these ideas are profound and can absolutely help you become the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
But they need to be delivered in a way that's palatable to us. And I think particularly, and why I changed the title to that more controversial word, is I want young people to read this book. I mean, most people who are going to read this book have read it already because it's been around 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It's the 3rd edition. So I thought, what about people who are like 18 to maybe 30? So the ideas we're perhaps going to discuss now, some of your listeners might be familiar with. That doesn't mean they're still not powerful, because it's like you might know them, but are you using them? But I think there's a lot of young people who've never come across them before. Like, what young person's ever sat back and gone, what are some of my limiting beliefs and where did my beliefs come from? It's just not a question that I think young people think about. I mean, so when I went on that Carnegie course, I only started thinking about my own limiting beliefs when I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, I don't know how old you were before you kind of stood back. But so that's my passion, to get this message out to younger people so they can kind of become the best version of themselves perhaps a bit earlier than you and I.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. And I think one of the things that I've mentioned to some of my peers is I wish I'd learned some of the stuff from these books. I'm a big fan of you, big fan of like Paul McGee as well. Yeah. All the content that you guys talk about, I wish that I would have learned that at school. And as I mentioned before in previous podcasts, I felt like I probably coasted in my life for 15 years working in retail, being a national trainer and then working in these leadership roles. Just coasted, just did what I thought was, what life was.
I've got 2 responses to that. One is, I think we all wish that we did things at different times, but I also believe that, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that you kind of that's a good belief to have. And also, yes, why isn't this stuff taught in school? And again, this is a massive generalization now, but a lot of teachers are the poorest learners.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers, I once got drafted in for the Minister of Education at a big conference. He was ill. So they pulled me in, speaking to 2,000 head teachers. Probably one of the most challenging audiences I've ever had, because they all sat back with their arms folded going, I'm not going to listen to this because I'm a head teacher, right? But if only, first lesson on a Monday morning was like learning how to live or learning how to learn even.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be taught in schools, I don't think, unless it's a very switched on school. So we'll like to teach it on podcasts instead, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't seem to think how statistics have really improved my life. Learning statistics at school. I don't know how I've ever used that, to be honest.
Which is why it's called, and again, it sounds very American, but it's the term we're all familiar with, personal development.
Yeah.
So a big part of my message is, and I think it's a really challenging message, especially right now, the kind of times we're living through, is taking personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Is really hard to do. And we'll probably touch on beliefs maybe in this conversation. But as an example, during lockdown, it's been great because my grown-up kids, 2 of them have moved back in and out on various occasions. So we had this weird thing after not living with us for years, having to renegotiate that. But when they were like younger, two of my boys are 2 years apart. So oldest one was doing A levels, and middle one was doing GCSEs, and they had this thing called study leave. Did you have study leave, Rick?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't. You see, I'm too old for that. We didn't get all that time off. And that seemed to comprise of them just lying on the sofa watching Jeremy Kyle when it used to be on, right? So after about 2 weeks of this, I thought I'd better sidle in and go, boys, how do you think you're going to do in your exams? Your A levels and GCSEs? And they both went, crap. We're going to do rubbish, Dad. And I went, why? And I said, because our teachers are crap. Right now, and the reality may well be that their teachers aren't very good, but unless they take personal responsibility for their own results or outcomes, we've dealt some cards. It's how you're going to play them, and I think it's really hard because at the minute we're all blaming circumstances. We're all going, if it weren't for this, I could do that. But the fact is, circumstances aren't going to change. You have to change your own circumstances by just learning Zoom or whatever it is to find a way, because I don't know how many speaking engagements you've had in the last 12 months live. None.
Let me think. Yeah, none. Yeah.
So personal responsibility is a big message, but it's a hard one for people to take because it's a lot easier to go, I'll blame the government, I'll blame the environment, I'll blame other stuff, right? But what I wanted to show, we had a chat, didn't we, before? We did give this some thought in advance, listeners.
Yeah.
And I know you're a massive fan of this, and I thought we'd share with them probably my most favourite idea in the book. And the reason it's my most favourite idea is it's one I talk about a lot on stage, and it's the most powerful idea I perhaps know. And how I know it's the most powerful is it's the one I get the most feedback on. And somebody uses that line, don't the feedback of champions? I still don't know what that means.
Yeah, really. Feedback's the breakfast of champions or something. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but feedback is useful, isn't it? This works. Now, again, my whole thing is as well, because I'm from Yorkshire, is it practical? Does it work? That's all I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know this works because I don't know if you had this. We lead a strange life because back in the old, pre-whatever times, you stood in a train station or an airport and a complete stranger comes up to you and they go, Steve, hello. And you go, oh, no idea. Yeah. You spoke at this conference 5 years ago and I was in audience. You know that thing, the 4-minute rule? I've been using it ever since. It's really powerful. So I get that a lot. So I thought that'd be a good place to start, really, in terms of giving people practical stuff, the 4-minute rule.
I get that, Steve, in Tesco's from gigs that I've performed at, like weddings or events. And I'm in my pajamas in Tesco's and they go, oh, it's the magician. I'm like, hello. Yeah,
it's like having a strange form of memory loss, isn't it? Like, I've no idea who you are. You're going to have to tell me. So you just have to fess up, don't you? So let's just so if you've got nothing, if you take nothing else away from this podcast, this is so powerful. I guarantee it will change every relationship you have, whether that's your personal relationships with your partner, your kids, your friends, or professionally, like at work if you're a leader or a team leader or none of those roles, right? So what is the 4-minute rule? Is what I would say. Well, the 4-minute rule is based on the science of you only have 4 minutes. And then it's game over. What do I mean by that? Well, cliches often become cliches because they're true, don't they? So you never get a second chance to make a
first impression.
We all say that because it's true, right? In fact, you've got up to 4 minutes, then it's game over. In fact, more accurately, you've got between 7 and 17 seconds. And I think we all know that at a gut level, don't we? Right?
Yes, yeah.
So if I was to give you an example of that, getting it wrong, it's like you're checking into a hotel. So most people listening to this have probably checked into a hotel at some point. And getting it wrong is you turn up and you've had a really long journey, it's late at night and you just want to get to your room and there's nobody behind reception to check you in, right? And then it's like, ow, that's just poor. Or there is somebody behind reception, but they don't acknowledge you. There's like a big long queue and they don't even acknowledge that they've seen you, right? So that's getting it wrong. And you'll know, even if the rest, say you're going on holiday and you're checking, you have that terrible ow, it hurt experience in the first 4 minutes. Even if you stay there for 2 weeks and rest of the time, it's great. The bit you remember, the bit you focus on, perhaps critically from a customer point of view, the bit you tell your mates about is first 4 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And it's about expectation. I think there's 3 things you can do to people. If you think about this from a customer experience point of view, and he's also with your family as well, you can ow them. Now, I'd spell that OWW, that's like ow. So I've just given you an example of that, Ricky, right? It's like turned up, nobody to check me in, ow, right? You can how them, HOW, which is, well, I expected to be like that. It's a 5-star hotel. I expected the guys to come and get me bags and all that, you know? And you can, and with all of this, you can wow them. So me and my colleague Curly, we're doing a workshop in London, and I don't know if people listening, she stay in London. We expensive hotels. We just booked this hotel because it was convenient to where we wanted to be, and it was the Thistle Barbican. Now, anybody listening to this, if anybody stayed into a Thistle hotel, you'll have some expectations, won't you, already? It's Thistle. So we're not expecting, 5-star luxury, but equally it's going to be okay. So I don't know if you think, what's the busiest time to check into a hotel? I don't know.
It's kind of like rush hour, isn't it? During rush hour, people rushing from...
Yeah, so about 6 o'clock. So I think it's about 6:30, something like that. Massive long queue, right? And me and my colleague Curly are waiting there. And this has never happened to me before in a hotel. A waiter comes down this long line of business people with a silver tray with these big glasses of red and white wine. And he says to me and Curly, would you like a glass of wine? And of course, being from Yorkshire, I went, why is it free? And he went, yeah. And then I thought, because I'm interested in all this customer, I said to him, why are you giving it to me then? And he said, oh, just to make your short wait a little bit more pleasant. Now, that's a great example of a wow, isn't it? Like, it was such a wow that you ended up talking to complete strangers in the same queue going, wow, this is great, isn't it? Get to check in. There's a guy checking us in and he says, oh, I see here, we've got some of our executive rooms are free. You can upgrade for just like 20 quid. We'd like to upgrade. Yeah, all right. No, that's why they did it. So that's brilliant, isn't it? That's a great example of wowing really people. Good. But here's the thing. When I talk about the 4-minute rule, you've got to be consistent. You can't like have the 4-minute rule on a Monday morning and not a Friday afternoon. So I don't know, but 6 weeks later, thought, Thistle Barbican, check in, same time of night, 6:30, big long queue. Ricky, what are me and Curly expecting?
You're going to be expecting some big glasses of red and white wine.
Yeah. Were they any?
Oh, no.
No. So they've gone from wowing us to owing us.
Yeah.
So the point with the 4-minute rule, it's a rule which is you have to follow the rule all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's about managing expectations. So a good takeaway for this would be to look at your processes, whatever you want to call that, especially when you first engage with people and go, where in our business or where in our relationships are we owing people already? Like we're just not answering phone or whatever it is, ow. Where is it how they would expect it to be, right? And how can we raise it? And where can we wow them? But on a consistent basis, like once we do it. And the challenge, of course, is what does a wow become over time?
Yeah.
A how.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly be up in your game, right? But let's turn it on its head and think about in a personal sense. So just to back it with a bit more research, this 7 to 17 seconds. So back in the day, there was a really well-known, very enthusiastic presenter called Professor Robert Winston. I don't know if you remember this guy.
I think I remember. He had, yeah. I was just going to say his big moustache. Yeah, did he have glasses as well?
I think he's best known for being one of the pioneers of test tube babies and things, right? But he used to do a lot of documentary science programs on the BBC, and he once did this experiment about first impressions, really. And he got about 6 or 7 guys, dressed them in black, got 12 members of the public at random to form this pretend jury, and then just literally wheeled these guys in one at a time, and didn't say anything. The jury just had to decide who they thought was guilty and who was innocent, which really supports this first impression bit. And the conclusion was, within seconds, the jury decided that people with symmetrical faces, in other words, reasonably attractive people, were innocent, and people with asymmetrical faces, in other words, ugly people, and you all know who you are, don't you? Right? Were felt to be more guilty. Now you might go, not fair, just true, right? Mm. So we know people make a judgment. You know, if I know you're going to be doing a great webinar on how to be good on camera, right? Mm. When people can see you, people make it. If you're doing a presentation, people are judging you before you open your big fat mouth. Yeah, so how you walk out onto stage is critical part of it in those first few seconds. Yeah. So let's just focus now. So we can see how we can use it in business. How, wow. What about in your personal life? So I thought, is this so powerful? So years ago, and I'm talking 20 odd years ago, when those kids that were doing their A-levels and GCSEs were little, you know, So my kids, I've got 3, so they're all 2 years apart. So Tom, Finley, and Megan. So they probably were like, I don't know, 6, 4, and 2. And I'm out on road all the time, planes, trains, automobiles. You know, I might have been overnight. And understanding the power of the 4-minute rule, you know, because normally what I was doing is getting dawn, kids would run up, Dad. You know, it's like, And it's tempting right at that minute to go, kids, can you just let me get in the house, take my jacket off, put my briefcase down? But understanding the power of the 4-minute rule, I had to train myself. And I think it is a case of training yourself. So again, if you listen to this, get a sticky note, put it somewhere. You know, I know we're not doing much traveling at the minute, but when we do get back to traveling, or if you are fortunate enough not to be working from home, or maybe if you are working from home in a space, put the sticky note on back at the door of your made up office or whatever it is, wherever you work, in your bedroom, your kitchen, right? And just write on it, remember the 4-minute rule. And the way to change your whole kind of world is to ask yourself a better question, I think. So when you're just moments away from meeting somebody for the first time, so that might be going for a job interview, for example. In this case, we're talking about the kids. So I just put a sticky note on the dashboard of my car, right? And it just said, remember the 4-minute rule. And then a great way to change your state or how you're feeling is to ask a better question. So the question I trained myself to ask was this. And obviously, I'm not suggesting you can adapt this question for any environment. Would never suggest that, right? This is the question, how would the best dad in the world act when he walked in that door? And that's how I acted, right? Now, here's the really good news. You only have to keep it up for 4 minutes, right? Yes. Because that's the bit that makes the biggest impact. But even better news is when you get in a resourceful state, when you find yourself rolling about on carpet, having a laugh with your little kids, it becomes a virtuous cycle, right? And you just do it and it just becomes natural. So, because I trained myself to do that, to think about in the early days, I like to think now on an unconscious level, I'm really sensitive to those first 4-minute interactions all the time. Yeah. Leaders listening to this, or people who lead teams, I would suggest how you open the Zoom meeting is how the meeting ends, right? When we are fortunate enough to go into an office, how you walk into the office is how your team walk out last thing at night, you know, and again, perhaps before you've opened your mouth. I mean, for example, let's say I'd said to you before we started doing this podcast, Ricky, I'm sorry, but I'm expecting this really important phone call from a potential client, right? So I've got to take it. We'll have to pause and put it on pause, right? Pause the recording. And then phone went, and I went, I've just got to take this out there, right? Outside my home office, right? When I came back, before I opened my mouth, would you know if it'd been good news or bad news?
Of course, yeah. You'd read it on your face, yeah.
Exactly. So your physiology, we all know, you've probably talked about this in the past, 55%, I reckon, don't they, of your communication is non-verbal. Well, that ties in with 4-minute rule as well, right?
Yeah.
And a final word on that, I mean, it's just powerful. Again, at a train station, guy comes up to me, hi, Steve. Not a clue, who are you? I'm a lawyer. Yeah. I'm a lawyer. I was in your audience like 4 years ago, and you were talking about the 4-minute rule, and I thought, he said, my kids have grown up and left, but he said, I realised I've been married like 25 years and I realised I was sort of not working the 4-minute rule. He said, I got to the habit, I get up early, go into the city to work, get back late, so I don't see my wife all day. You know, she's still in bed when I get up to go to work. And the first thing I do normally, it's just a habit, is I go to the kitchen, to the letter rack, and I go through all the utility bills. Can you imagine what sort of state that put him in, Ricky, right?
Yeah, not a very good one, I don't think, yeah.
And then I go have a chat with his wife. He thought, I'm going to stop doing that. What I'm going to do is make sure, first thing I do when I get home is go spend at least 4 minutes with her. But I'm not going to tell her what I'm up to, right? So he started doing that. And after about 3-4 days, and this was great, you know, after about 3-4 days, she went, go on then, what are you up to? What's going on here, right? And he explained it to me. He said, well, actually, it's great. I think the other thing I would say to this is what's changed since I first started talking about the 4-minute rule is the distraction of mobile devices.
Yeah.
We were watching a film last night, and we've all worked our way through Box Set City, haven't we, right? Yeah. We might make some recommendations. So my middle son's in our bubble. So me and my wife and my son Finley were watching Pet Sematary. We were watching. I won't recommend it.
No way. I watched that last night. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we watched it last night as well.
Yeah, Stephen King, good film. Yeah.
Mental. But anyway, that cat.
I'm a bit put off by my cat now. I'm a bit
worried
now when
about
my cat looks at me like that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's by the way. If you haven't seen it, this makes no sense at all. Pet Sematary. The point is, at any moment in time, one or all three of us were on a mobile phone. But that's how people do it, right? So another strong suggestion I would make to people is, when my kids were little, we used to, having a meal together was sacrosanct with no devices. Now I know parents with teenagers, that's really challenging, but the power of going, do you know what? Just set them. It's just for 4 minutes. It's literally just for 4 minutes. Put your phone in another room, put your iPad, whatever thing you've got, your Android in another room. It's just for 4 minutes, and if you like, make them do it. And ask them some good questions. And I think that's another way of using the 4 minute rule in the technological world we live in to create better relationships. Because what if, right, you were to use the 4 minute rule all the time at work? What if you were to use it all the time at home? What if you were just use it all the time? What would that do to the quality of all the relationships you have?
Yeah. Hey, it's Ricky, and I'm just pausing the episode just to remind you that if you do love this episode, then head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser and leave us a quick little review. Even if you don't want to write anything, you can just click the 5 stars, leave a rating, and it helps this podcast get shared to more people around the world. Now, I know that you're a really nice person and you're listening to this episode, so thank you. So let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts. Keep on being awesome, and let's go back to the episode. Goodbye. Well, I can actually say, Steve, that it actually changed my life when I first read it. And I actually took a Post-it note and stuck it in my car, because during the time I was a national trainer for Argos and Sainsbury's. So similar role. I was going all the way around the country, 3 nights, 4 nights away. I'd be getting home and I'd have like 4 or 5 bags to unload, and it'd be like, kick the cat out of the way. Come on, get out of the way. Trying to get in, pissing down the rain, that kind of thing. And I had that Post-it note that said, check your state. Yeah. And I was like, right, I'm going to leave everything in the car. And I learned to say, right, for that first 4 minutes, I'm going to leave everything in the car. I'll then walk in and I'll say hello, have a cup of tea, stroke my cat. He's happy to see me. And also, when I think about it, when I used to be a store manager, I know store managers that used to do this in Argos, where they'd be driving home, they'd be on the driveway, and then you'd see they'd have a really important call. They're just messaging, and you can see the kids waving through the window, like, "Hey, Dad, Dad's here." And in a minute, hang on. And you can see him. And you think, what is that kid going to think about? Like, oh, my dad's home. I want to see him, but he's sitting in the car. What's he doing in the car? And I use that method to just change everything as well with first impressions. I talk about this idea of creating a magical customer experience. So one of the things I was going to unpack there, because I love the 4 minute rule, Steve, is when I think about plumbers and some, no offense to small business owners, because I do have a small business anyway. But when I ring, like, say, local plumbers, that they're not probably the professional ones, but you ring the mobile that's on their website, and then they go, hello. You go, oh, hello. Is this Paul? Yeah. Paul from the plumber. Oh, yeah. Hi. You think, hang on a minute. My first impression there is, hang on a minute. This ain't right, is it? Is this the real guy? Whereas me, I always get it where anybody rings me, I go, good morning, Ricky Locke speaking. How can I help? And then when they go, oh, hello, Ricky Locke, have you got life insurance? Then I hang up. But it's that whole first impression, isn't it, that you don't get a second chance to make.
And also, I think the other thing is that you have to put it as a culture. So you just talked about everybody has to do it, right? So another great example. So I'm doing a thing for a client of mine, Headingley. And if you don't know what Leeds, so there's the mighty Leeds Rhinos and there's Headingley Cricket, right? And they share the same ground. There's going to be a Rhinos match on, a rugby league match on. It's on a Friday, that Friday night. But they've booked a training suite in the Len Hutton suite. I think it was a famous Yorkshire cricketer during the afternoon, right? We're going to do it there. And my client's also got a box at the rugby. So he says, so what's going to happen? It's great, Steve, because you're a big rugby fan. I said, I'm a season ticket holder there, but I'll come to your box, whatever. He says, so we'll do the training in the afternoon at the cricket ground. Then we'll just walk over for rugby match, and dinner and all that. And I said, well, where do I park? Because I know it's difficult on match day. I said, we'll send you an email, parking car park C. So I turn up at 2:00 of the Friday afternoon, and somebody who's given a high visibility jacket, right? So I'm parking my car, and I see this guy running towards my car, right? And I know what he's going to say. So I wind the window down. Before I can say out, he goes, you can't park there.
Yes.
Not hello, Teddy late. Not just you can't park there. And I'm thinking, well, I could be the new signing. I could be the new chief executive.
Yeah.
Leeds Rhinos. I could be anybody. I literally could be anybody.
Yeah.
He said, you can't park there. And I went, hang on a minute. I've got an email here. And he went, well, I'm telling you, it's the match tonight, and you're not allowed to park there because this is for match car park, right? So let's just get this email. Get the email, show it to him, and it says on the email, parking car park C, right? Here. He said, look, it says here, I said, I'm doing a training thing in Lane Open Bar, whatever, it's over there. I'm not quite sure, it's over this way. Well, they shouldn't have told you that. I said, but they have told me that.
Yes,
anyway,
yeah.
Ricky made me move my car, so I had to carry it. You've done training, right? So I've got all my props and all my, flip chart paper and stuff. So I carry it around. But what a difference. I'm looking for this Len Hutton suite, and I'm stood there with all this stuff. And there's a guy walking past in overalls covered in paint with a tin of paint, and he stops. Clearly, he's off to do some other job. He stops. He said, "Are you lost? Can I help you?" Right. So back to the first impression thing, and I went, "Well, I'm looking for Len Hutton Bar." I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll show you where it is. Do you want me to carry any of your stuff?" Right. Okay. So puts his tin of paint now. Get to Len Hutton Bar. It's on the second floor. We'll go up in the lift. Goes to open. Oh, it's locked. Just wait here. I'll go get the key. So here's the question. Person A, high visibility jacket man, what's he been trained in and what does he understand? And how do you get those two behaviours? So I think the other thing this ties in with is how important it is to the organisation.
Yeah.
Right? So how you show up, you've probably had this, how you show up as a guest somewhere, I've had so many different experiences where you turn up, again, back in the old days when you go into somebody's office, and it's either you turn up, there's a big long line, and they go, "Can you fill in your thing for your badge?" And I don't know about you, when people are watching me fill it in, I get all cack-handed. I can't even spell my own name. And everybody stood behind you going, "Come on, crack on, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
There's that, ain't there? Or worse still, they don't even know you're coming, right?
Yeah.
So either you fill it in, or you have that experience where they turn up and you go, "Oh, I'm Steve McDermott." Or even before that, you turn up and it says, "This car parking space reserved for Steve McDermott." You think, fantastic. You walk in and they go, "You must be Steve McDermott. We asked you what sort of coffee you liked in advance. Here it is." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that instant already
I've got a couple of stories then to share then, Steve, on that. Sorry to go in there. Yeah. So I won't say the full name just so I don't get sued here or get in trouble, but we'll just say for everyone listening, if you can think of a budget hotel, I'm going to call it Travel Shed.
Okay,
there we go. So
yeah,
for everyone,
I know you mean.
I did some training in Ipswich a couple of years ago. Really long day, really good session. But as you know, when you're training, you're on full energy, aren't you? And you're trying to engage the audience. So at the end of that, really tired. I got all my bags, like in the 4-minute rule. Got to the Travel Shed reception desk. It was okay. It was all right, as what I'd expected. Went up to the room. It was all right, as what I expected. Went forward, wash my hands, put the hot water on. There's no hot water. And I'm thinking, okay, a bit strange. Cold tap's working, no hot water. So I thought I'll just try the shower anyway. And there's no hot water. So I thought, okay, look, I'll go down and say, hey, asked the lady at the desk who had just checked in, said, "Oh, hey, I've been to my room. It's all okay, but I've got no hot water." And she went, "Oh, really? Okay." And she said to me this, she said, "Oh, it might just be the time of the evening. I think a lot of people's probably using it, so the pressure's gone off." And I thought, that sounds like bullshit. But anyway, okay, I said, "That's fine. But don't worry, I just need it for tomorrow when I have a shower. Is that all right if you can get fixed?" "Yeah, of course, no problem." Anyway, I had my microwave pizza for the dinner at the restaurant. And then I went up back to my room. And then, Steve, guess what? Next morning, guess what?
Cold water. No water. No
hot water. Nothing out that tap at all. So I went back down and I said, "Oh, yeah." A different lady this time said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm apologizing for that because I'm British. Yeah. I'm really sorry, but there's no hot water. But I did complain last night, but it's not been fixed." And this is what she said to me. She said, "Oh, hang on a second. Oh, it's working down here." I went, "Oh, right. Okay. I'll just take my clothes off, shall I? I'll jump over the desk and just have a shower there." And she went, "Oh, right. You've turned the hot tap on." And I went, yeah, I have. Okay. And she went, "Oh, have you turned the pressure from cold to hot in the shower?" Yeah, I have." "Oh, right. Well, I better come up then." I went, yeah, you better have. So we got in the lift, and it's an awkward conversation in lift anyway, isn't it? Because people don't talk to each other. She goes into my room, goes to the hot tap and goes, "Oh, there's no hot water." And I went, "Yeah, I know, it's a bloody miracle, isn't it? What's going on?" Now, here's the weirdest thing, right? So I asked, so she said, "Look, no worries, we'll sort that out." She gave me another room. Yeah. So some people say that's really good service. To me, I think it's a basic requirement. You get hot water, right? But anyway, here's the weirdest thing. So when I then left, I handed the key in and she said to me, "Thanks for staying. See you later. Bye-bye." Yeah. And I thought, what? Now, here's the weirdest thing. That first impression was broken. It was over a night, but the 4 minutes was gone. But now that's the experience that I always remember. So when someone says to me, "Let's go away, Ricky, shall we stay in a Travel Shed?" No, it's the worst experience possible. Now, even though I don't know that the rest of the travel lodges are probably brilliant, that one experience has tarnished that reputation. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. So this is what I'm saying. So a bit like my story at Headingley, you know, the high visibility guy and the other guy, and it's just. I'll give you a final example. So we used to do massive events at the Royal Armouries here in Leeds Museum, right? A great venue, theatre, whatever. And it's back in the day. One of my party tricks. I don't know if you know this, Ricky. I used to teach people how to break a solid piece of wood with a karate punch in less than 4 minutes, right? It's one of my party tricks, right? Which meant I'd have to turn up at the Royal Armouries with a big 4x4 with like 300 bits of wood in back, right, to unload them. And it was always a surprise. We used to surprise the audience. Didn't know we were going to do this, right? And my goal was to tell them at 9 o'clock we were all going to break a bit of wood by first coffee break. Anyway, that's by the by. And they used to have these guys used to at security, right? I think they had orange blazers, these guys. And time after time, I parked my car, which you weren't allowed to park right in front, just to unload it. And these guys couldn't wait to rush out and go, "Oi, you can't park your car there." And I got, "Look, I know, but we've got a big event in there and I've got to unload these 300 bits of wood," right? And it happened time and time again. It's driving me mad. So the third time this happened, this guy comes rushing up, you know, incandescent with rage because I'm unloading my car. And he goes, "You can't park your car there." And I went, "Look, can I ask you a question?" He went, "What?" "Who pays your wages?"
Yeah.
"Where do you get your wages from?" And he went, "Like Cash Point." I mean, no. "Who paid your wages?" And he went, "What, Royal Armouries?" I went, "No." "Have another guess." He went, "No, Royal Armouries." That's not. "No. I do 6 events here every year, right, with a full theatre, right? I paid your wages. So what you should be doing is, rather than coming up to me every time I pull up here, and it's usually you saying, "You can't park your car there," you should be saying, "Can I help you unload your car?" And he took a breath and went, "Well, you still can't park there." So I think the thing is, you know, you might be the top salesperson in your business. You might get this massive contract. It only needs your delivery guy to turn up and just dump all stuff in reception and go, "I'm not going to take it upstairs for you." And they tear up your contract. So you've got to make it joined up throughout the whole team, the whole organization. Are we all running this 4-minute rule? Or is it, otherwise you're going to do this ow thing to people all the time. And, you know, we've all figured out which hotel you mean there. And that may well be true of them. And this is the thing, because of social media now, you know, people used to talk about, you know, one unhappy customer tells 20 other people. Well, no, they don't. There's a guy, there's a brilliant, I think it's been around a while now. It's called American Airlines Broke My Guitar.
All right.
Right, YouTube it, right? Here's a guy, he's got like this amazing, unique guitar. He's booked a separate seat for it on American Airlines, because it's so, you know, you don't want to put it in the hold. Turns up to check in. "We're overbooked. You can't take your guitar on plane." Well, he said, "You're not putting it in hold. It's not. It's gonna. If we go in, and this is what I've got to be there for this gig. You know, he's flying across America." Said, "No, well, honestly," he said, you do got to understand this. We will look after your guitar. We understand, sir." Right, fine. So reluctantly, he checks it into the hold, right? And so I'm actually sat on the plane looking out the window, and I see the little trolley thing come up, you know, that bag's on, and I see my guitar, and I see a guy pick it up and throw it into the hold of the airplane, right? So I said, "Can you imagine the state I'm in for the whole flight?" Because I've seen him. What is it? So anyway, it's busted into a million pieces, right? So obviously gets onto and goes, "I cannot believe this. It's irreplaceable, but you're going to have to pay me whatever." And he gets no response. So he ramps it up and eventually gets to chief executive of American Airlines. "You know, you brought me guitar. What are you going to do?" Gets no satisfaction. So because he's a musician, what does he do? He makes a music video, writes a new song called American Airlines Broke My Guitar, videos it. I don't know where he got a plane from. Shot the video, the pop video shot on a plane, puts it on YouTube. 2 million views.
Wow.
So when you get it wrong like that with the first bit impressions, right, it's not just 12 people that know it, can be millions. So it's a really powerful thing in your relationships and in your business.
Well, I used to get this. I used to become a bit of a stickler for this in my team. If they're listening to this, they'll be like, "Oh, Ricky, just shut up about it." But it used to really grind my gears. So first impression's key. So after watching your video, it changed everything. And I thought, right, when I walk into, so we did a lot of stuff for supermarkets. I won't say the supermarket. You'd go in and obviously I'd bring all my stuff in. I was really excited. I was supposed to be there. First thing, you go to the customer service desk to sign in. And same experience like you said, like, "Who are you? What are you supposed to be here?" And I remember, like, I used to do this all the time. I used to carry a whole set of pens in my bag. They don't know that. But what I used to do, they'd just say, hi, my name's Ricky. Lovely to see you. I'm from, head office. I'm here to do a training workshop today for customer experience training. Oh, great. Okay, brilliant. Just sign in the book. Okay, brilliant. They hand me this book and no pen. So I stand there and just go like this, and she went, are you all right? I went, yeah, I'm fine. And then she asked me again in a minute, are you all right there? I went, yeah, I'm just waiting for a pen. Oh, have you not got one on you? No, I haven't. No, I did secretly, Steve. That's why my team pissed off at me. But that's not the point. The whole point is, hang on, I'm walking into your store. Give me that first impression. Treat me like a customer. Explain it. Now, this is what happens. There was a clear divide where some parts of the country, for some reason, south, this is where it didn't really happen. I mean, it happened a lot. Up north, so maybe, I don't know if it's Yorkshire or up north, a lot more friendly, but everyone was like, oh, great to see you. How are you? Where you come from? Here's a pen. Here you go. Yeah, keep that, my love. Keep that. Brilliant. Clear divide in the country. But for me, it was that first impression. What do I then walk away with? Thinking, that store's crap. I'm never going there again. Now, it might be really good experience. But anyway, look, I'm going to move on because we'll be talking about this all day. But I have got one last question about the 4-minute rule, Steve. My good friend, Mr. Paul Dams, as I mentioned to you pre-podcast, we've watched the 4-minute rule because we used to use it as a reference tool when we used to run our seminars and workshops. And there's something you mentioned in the video, which is there are 3 things that you can do to customers. And you talk about ow and wow, but it was never explained the third. Now, I can see from looking on the camera what it is, but the listeners won't know this. So if anybody checks out the link, we will put the link to Steve's video, the 4-minute rule, in the show notes. But Steve, what is the third thing that you can do to customers?
Right, so again, let's just, in terms of spelling, if you watch the video, so ow, O-W-W, I'm spelling that. So ow is ah. So that's, ow, that really was bad. So you've given some examples.
The hot water example.
Hot water's been except, but even the pen could be an ow. If it was like a 5-star hotel, how, H-O-W, well, that's my expectations. That's like kind of like what I would just expect. So if you're dealing with a big brand, for example, you go, well, that's the minimum I would expect. And wow is when it's like, that is amazing. So the free glass of wine, right? And so the thing to do is go away and look at your, what I'd call your process, your customer experience process, or your relationship with your significant other or your kids, and go, where am I owing them? Where is it how I would expect, and where can I wow them? So thinking back to all the things we've said in this podcast, if you're sat in the car, you've come back and the kids are looking through the window, and you're not going to say hello to them, you're owing them, aren't you, as a dad or a mum, right? That'd be an ow, right? Whereas if you rush in, right, and you do something crazy with kids, right, that they're not expecting, you wow them. But remember, the final point would be, what do wow become over time? They become hows. And so the challenge for any relationship or any organisation is, how can we keep upping the ante? But we have to have a process that follows that. We always do that. We always do. That's how it always is, right? I mean, as the back in the day, one of my big clients, they actually have, a role which is manager of first impressions.
Oh, wow.
A accountancy firm I worked with, they had the receptionist wasn't called receptionist. I think she was called something like guardian of first impressions. And she had a little black book of all their clients. And as I said before, she knew what they were called. She knew what the kids were called. She had all these details. And she even knew what the coffee they wanted. So when they came in, she'd go, hello, Ricky, here's your name badge. How's Lisa? How's whatever? Still foreign rhinos did quite well last week, didn't they? Here's your coffee with 2 sugars. Like in the first 30 seconds. And it's like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's hard. It's just, you just need to just become, final word would be just become conscious of it. So thinking about whenever you listen to this now, what you're going to go away and do next. Does it involve ringing somebody up? Does it involve going from wherever you are into another room? What is it? And what you're going to do to get in the right state to manage the 4-minute rule. And I think it starts with, there's the physiology of like, how am I feeling? Am I feeling tired? Well, I need to get out of that. I might need to put a big smile on my face. But asking that powerful question, how would the, whatever it is, best dad, mum, partner, manager, leader, customer care person, plumber, act in the world, and just act like that?
Well, there we go. That was part 1 of my great interview with Steve McDermott. I hope you enjoyed the 4-minute rule. I love it. It's absolutely changed my life, and I hope that it inspires you to start thinking about those first impressions that we all create. But don't forget, part 2 will be on next week's episode of Unlocked, so stay tuned and we take a deep dive into Steve's new book, How to Be a Complete and Utter Fuck Up. It's a fantastic book and you don't want to miss this episode. And don't forget, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating, or on Podchaser, and leave us a review as well, because it gets this podcast shared out to more people. And thank you for listening. We'll join you next week for part 2 of Steve McDermott's episode. Goodbye.